So my name is Sami Awad, and I'm the founder and director of Holy Land Trust, an organization based in Bethlehem in the West Bank. So when we talk about the Holy Land, we talk about even the conflict today. I see it as a conflict between the narratives and the stories of the people that lived here. The Palestinian community has also been here for hundreds of years, identified as Palestinians. There were Jews that lived in this land. The Jews were dispersed from this land in 70 AD. There was never any denial of Jews to come and to be here and to worship here and to live here, to stay here, and many Jews actually stayed here. And it's interesting that until 1948, those Jews would have labeled themselves as Palestinian Jews. Even the birth certificates that they had, they were born in Palestine. The return of the Jews, or the coming of the Jews into this land, is very much linked with the atrocities that the Jewish community was beginning to suffer in the late 20th century, and of course leading up to the Holocaust, where Jews who lived in Europe were a community that was deeply suffering. But the suffering of the Jews led them to seek the establishment of a state to protect themselves from the continuous persecution. It was a foreign government promising a people to a land that did not even belong to or under the control of that foreign entity. That state having a majority Jewish population. And I think this is one of the big challenges that we still live in till this day, is the fact that it's not just about Israel being created or Israel taking over the land. It is meant in that mindset that is driven by fear and trauma to be a land exclusively for one particular group, which, biblically speaking, goes against anything of the teachings of the Bible. Even when the land belonged to the Hebraites and the traditional Jews of the Old Testament, there was never an exclusivity to this land for that group. They were actually called to honor those who were different, the stranger, as full equal to them. So as Jews were celebrating the establishment of their own independent state, ethnically cleansing 80% of the population that is not Jewish from this land, including my own family that lived in Jerusalem at that time, and they were kicked out from their homes. Palestinians experienced the Nakba, the disaster. The League of Nations issued a plan, kind of a peace plan, a two-state solution plan that divided the land between the Jews and the Palestinians. The acceptance of the Jewish people, the rejection of the Palestinians led to the war, which Israel, of course, declares it as the War of Independence. They got 80% of the land, or 78% of the land. We call it the Nakba, which is the disaster of what happened to us. I believe that one of the key motivations that motivates the Jewish community today and how it relates to the Palestinian community comes directly from the tremendous atrocity and the trauma and the pain that resulted from the Holocaust, another major war that happened in 1967. And that war led to Israel taking over control of the remaining land that it did not take over in 1948, which is the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem on the Palestinian side, and even they took even greater Sinai and the Golan Heights. And that was seen as something completely linked with messianic prophecies and end days theologies, and even more support came to Israel at that time, especially by churches. Why did Israel not simply annex the newly acquired territory and make it all part of the state of Israel? And those who lived here had an option or a choice. You could stay here, this is what you get, or you could leave. Some Israeli politicians saw the occupied territories as a bargaining chip for peace with the Arab world. The second issue, going back to this existential fear, was that the population of the West Bank was, of course, mostly Palestinian, Christians and Muslims. And if you encompass that into the state of Israel, then that would change the demographic balance. So Israel did not annex the territory, but the West Bank and Gaza, they occupied it by imposing their military to control the lives of the people that lived there. So this is where we use the word occupation. As Palestinians, we are occupied, and in that sense, it's not just about the land. Every aspect of our life was, for a great extent, now less, but still, controlled by Israeli military orders and regulations that pretty much determine every single aspect of our life in the present and in the future. Oslo wasn't necessarily a peace process as much as it was a process to create separation and segregation between the communities. It wasn't a process that brought people together. It wasn't a process that reconciled. It wasn't a process that we said, let us deal with the atrocities that happened in the past and seek to heal and to forgive each other and move forward. The expansion of the settlements, the restrictions on the movement, and I would even say the semi-corruptive system that was created in the Palestinian Authority to control the Palestinians has led many Palestinians to really give up hope that such a peace will ever be possible in this land. We need the church to stand in a place where it is to fulfill what the church is called, which is to be peacemakers. And the church needs to engage in peacemaking in this land. The work that I think Churches for Middle East Peace is doing in really promoting a deep sense of peace and equality and justice in this land is something that we as the Palestinian Christian community deeply cherish and appreciate. Churches for Middle East Peace doesn't come here to tell us what to do. They come here in solidarity and support with the Palestinian community, Christians and Muslims, standing for peace between Palestinians and Israelis, and playing a major role in helping the church in the US begin to understand what is really happening in this land